Hey, Dougie.
How we doing, gentlemen? Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day.
Yeah. Let's start.
I just got back from the Vikings facility, so
Okay.
time for me. Yeah, their walkthrough, interesting today. It wasn't technically a practice. Now, we were able to get a little glimpse as we walked by the indoor field, but when they don't practice, they don't have to allow reporters in. So we weren't able to watch, but I caught a glimpse on our way into the locker room just about 2 hours ago. It did look like they were going through a walkthrough, but interestingly enough, that walkthrough went late. I don't know how a walkthrough goes longer than anticipated by about 10 or 15 minutes. So my day, my afternoon, my early evening got thrown just ever so slightly off in 15 minutes because the Vikings walkthrough went that much longer.
That's okay, man.
Yeah, that's okay, man.
But happy to be here.
So
We're happy as well,
I'm
Dougie.
glad. Yeah. How are you doing?
Things are good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, heck, full disclosure, gentlemen, I would happily take a vacation right now. Like if my boss is here, want to say, here's an airline ticket for you and your wife to go escape to, you name the exotic location. Heck, I'm open to that. I'd be okay with that. But all things considered, things are fine, right? I mean, we all have different stuff in our lives that, can throw us off from time to time, right? We all have personal stuff. I've got a 13-year-old that's active, a 10-year-old, which is fantastic. But they constantly need rides. They're constantly badgering me for money, right? I wish they were badgering me for advice, but it's more so money or a ride. So I always say my part-time job is Uber driver, right? I'm just driving everywhere and trying to navigate, happy wife, happy life. And so trying to make sure that my wife isn't doing all the driving, because oftentimes, right, if I need to be at Vikings or here at the TV station until 6, 7 o'clock at night, sometimes later, I can't really do the driving at night. So then it falls onto the shoulders of my wife. That's not fair. So trying to find that balance. I need to, have a good life, right? So the constant battle. I don't have all the answers, but when you ask me in the moment, all things considered, I'm doing okay.
I'm sure things will work themselves out.
I'm sure they will.
So thank you so much for accepting our invitation again to give you an idea of how important you are to us. Besides all the respect and the admiration we have for you, our last episode was the most watched video on our channel, and it's very important for us to have you here back, recorded with us. We are going to revisit some topics from the episode we recorded in July, so we can compare what has changed since then. Sounds good?
Sounds good to me. How much did I get wrong back in July?
Not much.
The same as everyone, maybe.
I don't know if anybody had them at 7-2 right now. I had them going over the Vegas over-under of 6.5, but I'd be lying, gentlemen, if I told you that I thought 9 games in, the unofficial halfway point of the season, that they would have 7 victories. I did not foresee this sort of success. I thought they would be okay. I know how well coached they are. I know the camaraderie that exists in that locker room, but I wasn't sure they had the talent they needed. But clearly they have that talent.
Yeah, I was wrong too. The guy said that they would be 9-0. I always say the Vikings are 9-0. Every season the Vikings are undefeated for me.
Yeah. They are, put it this way. Like, I've always wondered, are they stuck in like middle purgatory? But clearly they're not. And they knew what they were doing, moving on from Kirk Cousins. Now, hey, the news today about JJ McCarthy, not exactly great, that he needed an injection. So it wasn't necessarily another surgery, but we're getting into the semantics. It was a procedure. It was a setback. Now, hey, he was to the point of ramping up his rehab, but once he started to ramp up, there was a bunch of swelling in that right knee. And so he needed an injection. That's just not good. I know the Vikings today publicly were putting on, enough of a positive face and attitude and suggesting, hey, his timeline hasn't been thrown out of whack or anything like that. But I don't know. I'm a skeptic by nature. I need to see it play out. So hopefully McCarthy is going to be okay. But in the meantime, hey, Sam Darnold might lead the NFL in turnovers. But I'll tell you what, I just had a nice conversation with Ed Ingram. I just had a nice conversation with Blake Brandel, some other guys in that locker room. I will tell you this much. That locker room still thinks the world of Sam Darnold. Plus, when you look at what was it, 81 plays on Sunday? Did they run 81 plays against the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah,
time of possession went nearly 42 minutes, or it might have been over 42. But anyway, like, yes, there were 3 or 4 that we can absolutely nitpick. And we can even wonder about the call itself. Why even put Sam in that position? But there was also a good amount of good on Sunday. And I think I can say that for the most part about every single game. But I'm telling you, bottom line, whether on camera or off camera, to a man in that locker room, they still freaking love Sam Darnold.
Doug, it's nice that you started talking about DJ McCarthy and Ed Ingram, because our first question is about the Crazy's draft picks. So in 2022, we talked about last time that maybe Lucien will be gone, maybe Andrew Booth will be gone. We don't know if it will be the two. Well, the two are gone. And Ed Ingram, there are some rumors that he may lose his job to Dalton Risner, not the Risner himself again. And then Blackmon tore his ACL in training camp. DJ McCarthy had the meniscus injury in training camp as well. So throughout 2.5 years, how do you see Quasi's draft picks? His draft strategy. Of course, you have much more intel than we have. But about Quasi's strategy and the results of his drafts.
Okay, well, on his draft, because I can make the case that his free agent class this year is perhaps the best overall free agent class. You ready for this? This isn't hyperbole. The best in Vikings history, but specifically on his 3 draft classes, 22, 23, 24. I think we've seen some improvement. Okay, so 22, Ed Ingram, but I get it. Big question mark. What is the long-term viability of Ed Ingram at right guard? We can have that conversation. Ty Chandler, seemingly demoted to number 3 running back. Brian Asamoah. Now, hey, I'm a Brian Asamoah fan, and I think he's noticeable on special teams, but I get it. 3rd-round pick. You expect more. I think a change of scenery will do him very well. I would not put any sort of final chapter on Brian Asamoah's NFL career. I don't know if he's going to prosper here, but I think he can prosper elsewhere. But in the meantime, he can be a good special teams player. Caleb Evans, I mean, he had his chance, not so much anymore. Jordan Addison, to me, looks like a legit number 2 receiver, but is that his ceiling? Can he ever be a number 1? Okay, probably not here with Justin Jefferson's presence, but if he was on another team, does he have the skill set to be a true number 1 wide receiver? Not sure, but I think he's a rock solid number 2. I think about Dallas Turner. His snap count from this year has gone up. I just had a nice conversation with Dallas. He's feeling really good in the moment. I thought he was noticeable on Sunday. I mean, think about it. Those Rams and Lions games, what did he play? A total of about 7 or 8 defensive snaps? Yeah, special teams, but when you're a top 20 pick, the expectation is you are a difference maker. You're Jared Verse on the LA Rams, right? You're that sort of instant difference maker. We haven't seen that from Dallas Turner, but I will tell you guys, I have a man crush on Dallas Turner. Give it a little bit more time. We're seeing shades since the Colts game the last 2 weeks. We saw it week 1 against the Giants. Give it a little bit more time. I would not absolutely give up on Dallas Turner. I'm still incredibly bullish on Dallas Turner. Then, I guess, whatever other picks you want to look at, but to me, you need to put the spotlight on those high picks, right? So Cine and Booth, okay, disaster. No other way to paint those pictures, although Lewis Cine, devastating injury. Who knows if he'll ever come back from that injury in London, right? He came back, but truly come back to the player he was at the University of Georgia. Andrew Booth Jr., last I checked, he was cut by the Dallas Cowboys. So failed here, failed in Dallas. Still young enough where maybe still gets another opportunity, but at this point, when you're a top 45 pick, when you really haven't done much, you're pretty much a bust. But then Jordan Addison, then Dallas Turner, J.J. McCarthy, we just don't know, right? I'm telling you, I'm concerned. I really am with this injection. And I get it. Like, stuff like this can happen. Was it a PRP injection? We still need some more details on this injection he got. But still, like I'm telling you, like I pause on stuff like that. And who's to say the knee doesn't swell up again? But there is a lot to like about J.J. McCarthy. I mean, going back to training camp, going back to that first preseason game, I think he has a really, really high ceiling. I just got to make sure that that right knee is okay. So to be determined on J.J. McCarthy big time, but Addison, Turner, like I can live with those picks. I feel like there's progress, right? So 22 into 23, 23 into 24. Now, hey, 24 into 25, Kwesi's only got so many draft picks, right? So, all the maneuvering he's done and trading and all that, he's only got a few picks. So we're not talking about what is going to be at this point a deep 2025 draft class. But hey, he does have that first round pick. I don't think they ever came close to trading that first round pick at the trade deadline, just because I don't think the Giants were ever trading, at least in that moment, Dexter Lawrence. I don't think the Tennessee Titans were trading Jeffrey Simmons. I don't think it got far down the road with Carolina on J.C. Horn. So the Vikings did not come close, at least from what I can gather, trading that first round pick. So you could always take that first round pick, even though at this point it looks like it's going to be pick 28, 29, 30, right? Maybe lower, right? I mean, depending on how the playoffs shake out, but it's going to be a late first round pick. But they could always trade down. So a team trades up. They want that fifth year option. Maybe it's for a quarterback. So the Vikings could accumulate more picks by moving back from that late first round into the second round, that first draft night into that Friday, day 2 of the draft. So maybe instead of just a few picks, maybe Kwesi ends up with 6 or 7 draft picks coming up in late April. But as of now, he just doesn't have a whole lot of ammo, but I feel like there's been progress. To answer your question, a long-winded way of answering the question for me to simplify it, 22 to 23 improvement, just because 22 was very much a dumpster fire. Then 23 to 24, feel like there was enough improvement. Plus, Will Reichard, like he should be back at some point this year. Will Reichard is a stud. And so I get it. Like, you don't always use a draft pick on a kicker, but Reichard is so darn good. And so because they nailed the kicker later in the draft, I feel like we can say year by year, there has been progress.
Yes. So another topic we discussed was the locker room atmosphere. You mentioned that KOC had the control of the locker room and the players generally like play for him. Nowadays we have the Tell Us with Metellus videos and KOC game ball presentations. We get to see more of this vibe and behind the scenes atmosphere. How do you access the Vikings locker room environment? Do you still believe in KOC has the control over the players?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, I think as much as any coach has over a locker room in the entire league. That includes Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. That includes the Harbaugh brothers, one in LA, one in Baltimore. That includes Andy Reid in Kansas City. Like, now you could argue, Andy, nobody's touching that, and that's fine. But my point is, Kevin, absolutely. I mean, it's practically kumbaya. Let's hold hands, and love each other. I mean, yes, that locker room. Now, hey, winning cures a lot. If they were 2-7, we might be having a different conversation. But 7-2, yeah, it's everything I said in July. These guys love, emphasis on love, capital L, all right? They love playing for Kevin O'Connell. And I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. I can make a case. I'm not saying it's the right answer. This is opinion-based. There is no right answer. But I can make a case. The combination of play caller and defensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, is as good a 1-2 punch as there is in the NFC. I'm not saying NFL, okay? Andy Reid, Spags, Kansas City, fine, right? Some other situations in the AFC, fine. And hey, Detroit is right up there too. Campbell, Ben Johnson, right up there. Ben Johnson will be a head coach next year. I think Ben Johnson is going to be a good head coach. All right, so Detroit is right there. But I just feel like O'Connell Flores, as good as, I'm not saying the best, but as good as any 1-2 punch in the National Football Conference, the NFC, not the NFL. But if we're talking the NFL, certainly top 5.
You also said, when we spoke in August, I think, that Sam Darnold will have the best year of his career throughout 9 games. He's on pace to crush this. No, although leading the league in turnovers, he's playing the best one. I think you can make a case that he's like top 10-ish quarterback in the NFL this year. With the news that JJ McCarthy had to do another procedure, and KLC put on a hopeful face. But do you think there's any chance that with this setback that Sam Darnold could be in Minnesota again in 2025?
I don't, because I think he's playing so well that he's looking at a big payday. And I just don't think that payday is coming here in Minnesota. Now, hey, if the McCarthy right knee injury turns out to be more serious than we know in this moment, maybe it's a different bridge quarterback, right? That's not Nick Mullins, somebody else, somebody that's on a different roster right now. But I think Sam Darnold is going to get paid elsewhere. And hey, the reason I said that back in the summer was he's never had this sort of infrastructure, right? At the time, we talked about one of the 3 best left tackles in the game. Stinks that Christian Darrisaw is out for the year, but in that moment, it was elite left tackle, elite right tackle, the best wide receiver in the game. And if you think it's Tyreek Hill or someone else, fine. But Justin Jefferson among the best receivers in the game. That eventually they were going to get TJ Hawkinson back. Look at the difference maker TJ was on Sunday. So we know that they have a top 5 to top 8 tight end in the league. I'm telling you, I think Jordan Addison is a rock solid number 2 receiver. And I knew that Aaron Jones was one heck of a pass catcher. He's even better than I realized. Plus, I knew he could block. To me, he's a better blocker than I realized. And so to have Aaron Jones, the key with Aaron Jones is, can he play all 17 games? Right? I mean, just there's an injury history from his days in Green Bay, but when on the field, he is really, really good. And so I just looked at it and said, okay, you look at the players around him, then you've got his guy, Josh McCown, his former teammate in Carolina as the quarterback's coach. You've got Wes Phillips, good brain, as the offensive coordinator. Then, of course, you've got Kevin O'Connell as the head coach / play caller. I just thought, hey, he's never had that before. Now, he had it in many ways last year in San Francisco, but we knew that he was never going to be the guy unless Brock Purdy went down with an injury. We knew he was going to be the guy here. I never bought. I know there was some steam in early August. Hey, maybe JJ McCarthy starts week 1. I'm just telling you guys, and we may never know this answer, but I just never got the feeling that we were ever going to see McCarthy week 1. I thought we would see JJ maybe at some point this year, but I didn't think it would be early in the season. So I always thought it was going to be Sam Darnold's team. And knowing that, I just thought, hey, like it's now or never. If he doesn't succeed here, he's done. Well, he has succeeded, even though, as you mentioned, he leads the NFL in turnovers. He has succeeded enough where I think he's in line for a contract that will pay him minimum, $25 million a year? $30 million a year? And I get it. There's regret, like the Daniel Jones contract. There's other examples we can cite where teams wish they hadn't done those contracts. But I still think Sam Darnold is going to get 25 to 30 to even more million per year, whether that's with, hey, maybe the New York Giants or the Las Vegas Raiders, or you name the franchise that needs a quarterback. But I don't think it's going to be here. So no, I don't think Sam Darnold will be a Viking in 2025.
Brian Flores mentioned that he wants to become NFL head coach again, and I believe he has done a great job so far to deserve that opportunity. How do you see the future of the Minnesota Vikings in terms of coaching? Do you think Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores could be together again in the next season?
I do. Yeah, I mean, Kevin's not going anywhere, so Kevin O'Connell back as Vikings coach in 2025. Remember, Brian Flores is suing the NFL. His resume alone gives him the chance, every chance, to be a head coach again. He should be, based on the success last year. He should be a head coach right now. But when you're suing the league, and this has taken forever, but seemingly there is no end in sight. So he still is suing the league. When you are suing the league, I just don't know an owner that is then going to hire you as head coach. And so right now, my money is on Brian Flores being back with the Vikings in 2025. He verbalized this on Tuesday. It's something I've talked about before, at least on Score North, maybe even in this space or some other podcasts. I know how much Brian Flores' family likes it here. Like, his kids go to a school in the West Metro. I'm told they love it. He loves being here. And so he's not leaving for a comparable job, another DC job somewhere else. He's going to be here. He would leave, sure, if the right head coaching opportunity came about. And I hope he gets that opportunity one day. But until we have finality on that litigation, I just don't see. I really don't. You guys can offer some blowback if you want. You can tell me, hey, you're an idiot, and here's why you're an idiot on this. But I just don't see how an owner hires Brian Flores when he's essentially suing you, right? So let's say you own the New York Jets. You're Woody Johnson, okay? How is Woody Johnson going to hire somebody that is literally suing you? I don't see how that happens. Plus, we do know a lot of these teams are trending more toward an offensive guy, a Ben Johnson. Somebody like that it might be hard for a defensive guy. Not impossible. We've seen enough examples the last couple of years, right? It hasn't been 100% exclusive offensive guy into head coach. It's not always like that, but it certainly favors offensive coaches. And so that probably handcuffs him a little bit too. But more than anything, it's just he's suing the league. And until we have finality on that front, I just don't know how any owner, Woody Johnson, you name the owner, I don't know how that owner would hire Brian Flores.
Doug, I have a question that we didn't have planned, but have you heard anything about O'Connell and Kwesi's contract extension? We've said before the season that it will be a topic for next year, but have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I anticipate Kevin signing a contract extension, but probably more so in the offseason. I mean, I think like his representation, I think would have loved to have gotten something done after they got back from London. So after the Jets game, that bye week. But that didn't happen. And so because it didn't happen, I don't anticipate anything happening here in season. But can I see that happening in February or March or April, or maybe it's more like July before training camp starts? Yes, I foresee Kevin O'Connell signing a contract extension. And at this point, I think Kwesi will too. I mean, the Wilfs have owned the Vikings for, what now, 20 years? They've given out contract extensions before, then fired a guy if they had to, Brad Childress, right? I mean, Mike Zimmer, right? They've eaten contracts before, and I don't foresee them needing to fire Kevin O'Connell anytime real soon. So, I see the O'Connell extension happening, but more so in the offseason, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if Kwesi also got a contract extension.
I don't know if you remember, but we always finish our interviews with questions about Brazil, and we have to ask about the Brazilian game we had in week 1 between the Eagles and the Packers. How this game was received in the US, and personally, you think it was a good game, or if you think there was still room for improvement, the part of being an international game?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear anything necessarily negative. I mean, I always wonder about the field surface, but I don't remember hearing anything about, how messed up the field surface was. I remember hearing, from some Packers folks that it was a really long bus ride from the hotel to the stadium, but they left early enough where I don't know if that was any sort of serious hurdle. They knew they had to build in enough time to get from hotel to stadium. The game itself was highly entertaining. It was unfortunate what happened to Jordan Love at the very end, but hey, I would absolutely love to see the Eagles play the Packers again in January. I would love to see that playoff matchup. And I think at this point, both teams are playoff teams. Now, hey, for my sake, I hope the Vikings go for as long as they can, right? That's good for business. So, I hope neither team knocks out the Vikings to set up an Eagles-Packers matchup. But I'd be all about seeing the Eagles play the Packers in a playoff game.
Yeah. I know your time is short, so that's it. Would you like to say anything else?
No, I mean, heck, for all the Vikings fans consuming this conversation, continue to enjoy the ride. It sets up pretty well. I'm not saying they're going to win out, but it's favorable to win Sunday at Tennessee. After that at Chicago, maybe a little bit of a toss-up. Curious to see what the new Bears offense looks like this week. But it's not like that game isn't winnable. Then you think about Arizona and Atlanta coming here. You think about the Monday night game coming up in December, the Bears here. You think about the Packers coming here in December. I truly believe that game is going to get flexed in some form. Right now it's a noon central kick, but I wonder if it gets moved to either 3:25 or Sunday Night Football, 7:20. That's another thing for Vikings fans to keep an eye on. I think at least one, but could 2 games get flexed the rest of the year? I think it might just be one, but keep an eye on that. I mean, heck, Kirk Cousins making his return December 8th. That's appealing. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Sunday night game that Sunday night's a pretty good one. And so there may not be maneuverability and all that, but just enjoy it. It is going to be a fun finish. And hey, you think about that last game of the season at Detroit. How much fun would it be if that game is for the division championship? I mean, that's the one negative, right? That you feel like you might be the second best team in the NFC, that Detroit is number 1, but you can make a case the Vikings are number 2. Now, if you want to make a case for Philadelphia or Washington, fine, or even San Francisco. If you feel like now with Christian McCaffrey, it's San Francisco that's the number 2 team, fine, so be it. But I'm saying you can make a case it's the Vikings, but you can't be the 2 seed. The best you can do is be the 5 seed, right? If Detroit wins the division, the best you can do is the 5 seed. So that's the unfortunate part. But I still think if I told all Vikings fans, as we sit here on November 13th, if I told all Vikings fans on November 13th, hey, guess what? The Vikings are 7-2, and for the most part, relatively healthy. Yes, the Darisaw injury stinks.
Yeah.
Blake Cashman being out for 3 games stunk. Fantastic that he's back. And hey, the health is a roller coaster, right? They're really healthy now. No guarantees. If we have this conversation a week from now, they're really healthy. But for the most part, because they found a pretty good replacement in Cam Robinson. He's not close to Christian Darisaw, but all things considered, relatively good solution with Cam Robinson at left tackle. So all things considered, if I had told Vikings fans on August 13th that, hey, on November 13th, they are 7-2 and relatively healthy, I think every Vikings fan would have said, sign me up. That sounds fantastic. So enjoy it. They are 7-2. They are relatively healthy. Enjoy the ride the next 8 games.
Yeah. That's it, man. Thank you, Doogie.
You got it, boys.
Thanks
Appreciate
so much,
the
Darren.
invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.